I'm stuck in Folsom Prison, and time keeps dragging on. But that train keeps a-rolling, all down the line I saw. All down the line. When I was just a baby, my mama told me, son, always be a good boy. Don't ever play with guns. I hear the train a-coming. It's rolling around the bend. And I ain't seen the sunshine. I don't know when. I'm stuck in Folsom Prison, and time keeps dragging on. But that train keeps a-rolling, all down the line I saw. All down the line. When I was just a baby, my mama told me, son, always be a good boy. Don't ever play with guns. I hear the train a-coming. It's rolling around the bend. And I ain't seen the sunshine. I don't know when. I'm stuck in Folsom Prison, and time keeps dragging on. But that train keeps a-rolling, all down the line I saw. All down the line. When I was just a baby, my mama told me, son, always be a good boy. Don't ever play with guns. When I was just a baby.
What's going on, guys? Good evening. This is Kiodiekin. We got a hot one for you today. As you guys know, we downloaded the brand new Retropie image that is 512 gigabytes, and we're gonna cut out all the crap tonight. This was a debacle. It's a total piece of trash. It's a dumpster fire, and I'm appalled and shocked that Arcade Punks would even upload something like this in the condition that it's in. This isn't even Retropie. This is the same image that one guy I told you about has already been accused of fraud in the past, and he's charging people $30 from this. So there's a lot to cover. I just logged out of playing Wii or trying to play Wii emulation, and I had to hit Alt F4 on my keyboard. The buttons wouldn't start the game, none of that crap. So we're going to get into it. You guys could probably check Retropie Official and some of my other recent social media pages. And this is a total dumpster fire. And even some of the other devs in the community have said this was just thrown together. So you guys are being misled. This is not Retropie. This is somebody that took Retropie and just dumped it on a Ubuntu front end and called it Retropie. Not everything is accessible. I can't even SSH into it. I can't even load games to it right now. So you probably have to buy it if you want to load games onto it, so you don't even have full control over it. Can't even access Raspi config. I even tried going to terminal, and then booted me back out, took me to another screen, and started doing some weird, funky crap I have never seen before. So we're going to take a quick look at some of this. I'm not even going to get into much gameplay, but just to show you guys how desperate people are just to make a name for themselves and put some crap out there. Maybe I should up my Patreon or something, because if somebody's charging $30 for this, I'm darn well sure I could probably at least get maybe 50. I get 50, 60. Really? I could get some of that for this. So without further ado, before I get into anything, let's take a look at the image itself. We're going to take a look at the actual file size. The file size for this image is 477 gigabytes. It took about 8 to 12 hours to download. It then took, if I had left it on my external Seagate hard drive, which is no fault to anybody, this is just a hardware issue. If I left it on my Seagate hard drive, it would have taken me 22 to 24 hours to extract it. So I then copied it over to a faster drive that I have on here, which is on the SATA 6 connection. That took another 3 hours to do that. And then to fully extract it, it took about another 3 or 4 hours to fully extract it. And then it took another 47 minutes to write this image. I have to put this on a 1 terabyte image. Even though this is listed at 512, it's 477 gigabytes, but it's really a 1 terabyte variant. It is not a 512. However, I don't know if you guys, let me pull it up here, pull up the properties. So if this was 1 to 2 gigabytes smaller, it would have fit on a 512. 1 to 2 gigabytes, it would have fit. Remember, we had this conversation before in the past. So, and there's nothing on this image that's grandioso as to why it needs to be 512. There's like one Wii game, and there's like 5 or 6 PlayStation 2 games, and the rest of it's all the basic stuff you guys get anyway on a Raspberry Pi 4, which is your Atari stuff and whatever. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. I don't want this to be too long, but this is just an utter disgrace as to why something like this is even uploaded. But let's do this. I want to reboot this because I want you guys to see this for yourself. Now, if you look at the very top, there's a white bar up there. In fact, let me scroll up top. This is desktop. This is Retropie. As you can see there, this is you shouldn't even see a mouse cursor. There's the mouse cursor there moving around. This is somebody who just dumped a Retropie image onto a Ubuntu desktop, and it uses additional resources when stuff like this happens. So I don't even know if I can even get out of this right now. All right, let me turn that down. Let's see if I can escape out of this. Let's see if I can escape. Oh, look, we got all those little cursors and stuff going on upstairs. All right, so this is what you get, but I'm going to reboot this. But in order for me to, it took me a while to figure this out. Once you get back into applications, you can kind of scroll down here. This is, let's see, games. And from my understanding, there's already people complaining about it, like stuff doesn't work. So this is typically what happens when you boot up. So you get this, and then you get this stupid message here at the top. Emulation station is not responding. I don't know what this is. So let me go ahead and do a full reboot so you guys can see what we're dealing with. Oh, and by the way, I can't power down directly from the Raspberry Pi 5. I had to unplug it and then plug it back in. So for whatever reason, it locks you out when I go in, when I try to manually shut it down using the new power on, power off button that the Pi Foundation put on the Raspberry Pi 5. So you don't have really full access. I mean, typically this would shut down your Raspberry Pi image. So let me unplug it. We'll reboot. You guys can get the whole experience. All right, so we're rebooting now. All right, we're logging back in. What's going on, Damien? All right, so we get the standard Retropie stuff or boot screen that you typically would get. That's normal. You get your services. All right, so then you see all these other additional screens popping up in the background for I don't know, God knows what. All right, you get a little bit of that. You also see that mouse cursor there. That is not my computer mouse. That is, this is desktop. This is a desktop environment. And if you see that again, that white bar that's at the very top, this lets you know that you are running. And then you get this mess here that keeps popping up on the screen. All right, so I think our controller should be set. Let me plug my controller back in. All right, so we got some games here. I don't know what the controller layout is for Sega Model 3 and some of these other games. It's not your typical A, B, X, and Y. I was trying to figure out what some of my buttons were. my left trigger kept locking me out. Let's go over here. I want to take a look at our settings, which is typically normal. So everything's here except Raspberry config. I don't know how to access it. I even tried going to terminal, but for whatever reason, it completely locked me out and then froze on me. So I guess you have to pay the guy in order to get your SSH because it's not listed on Arcade Punks. But whatever the case might be, there's normally a setting in here that would say Raspberry config, which would allow you to either turn on or turn off SSH and some additional options here, but it's nowhere to be found. In fact, let's go look at my IP, and then you get this little jacked up screen here. The first time that I did this rebooted and flashed several different times before I even got to this screen. So that was kind of frustrating. So let me see if it happens again. It just went into like a boot cycle. Like that screen kept popping up and going away, popping up, going away. But I don't think this is what people pay for $30, and it definitely wasn't worth the 512 gigabyte download here. So let's take a look at a couple of games. Let's take a look at PS2 emulation. And the first game, let's see, what game did I try last time? I'll try something a little different. So it looks like most of these games here are just your average games that would typically run that are your 2D based games. I have no idea what this crap is. Again, this is your widescreen with the mouse. Typically you would boot directly into, let's say, you can see your options come out. You could pick your emulators, but it looks like here you don't even have the opportunity to kind of go in and adjust the settings. Let's go directly to the game. And the cool thing is it does boot directly into the game. Let me see if there's any sound. I'll turn it up a little bit. All right, so this is the other thing. So I double click on the mouse and this pops up in this little funky window with the white background. I don't understand really what's going on here, but this definitely looks more like a desktop environment. If I double click on this again, obviously it's in full screen. So you don't get a chance to really pick some of your settings here. In fact, let me hit escape, which normally lets me log out of the game. Hey, what's going on, Rapper Edwin? No Raspberry config in Ubuntu and no SSH by default either. Probably need, you need something. I mean, I figured it would have been written down somewhere. Normally it's Raspberry, Raspberry Pi, whatever the case might have been. Let's see here. We're full screen again. Let's see what okay, so if you look at the very bottom, we have terminal. Looks like okay, well, I should have probably clicked on that. It looks like I'm locked out here some kind of way. I hear music in the background. All right, the game is running in the background. Let's see here. Looks like I just hit something on my controller. But one of the things is when you see video demonstrations and this, it takes a lot of work. The bigger the file size is to extract it, get everything downloaded, up and running. I'm just surprised that Arcade Punks didn't showcase any of this or even uploaded it. I think people have the right to know what it is they're downloading when they're getting something. I have no idea what the heck this crap is. Let me exit. Okay, then now it takes me back to the desktop, not even a Retropie. I had to Alt F4 again in order to get out of it. But again, this is Ubuntu. So again, this was just slapped on top. This is worse than even just having it on Raspberry OS. And I believe the person did this is because the Asterisk emulator, Easter emulator, I'm sorry, I keep mispronouncing it. But the PlayStation 2 emulator, Easter, only works on Ubuntu. So they probably figured out they couldn't properly load it. So they just slapped a bunch of stuff on here, pushed it out to just try to sell. And then Arcade Punks, obviously showcase it and you guys could download it if you want to. And then, of course, you get another screen here that says either wait or force quit. Never seen this before in my life. And then, of course, this little white tab bar at the top, as you guys are looking at, is still there. But let's go through some of the games here. I looked at the game list on my computer. You have one Wii game. Now, if I'm pushing a 512, I'm going to load this thing down with PlayStation 2, Wii, Sega Saturn, maybe Sega CD. You know, some of the other harder to run games. I don't see a justification for 512 when you have 3DO, Amiga, CPC, Apple II, Atari 2600, 5200, 7800. I don't see a need for any of this stuff here. In fact, let me see if there's actually a okay, there's 54 games there. Atari 2600, 429. Atari 5291 games. Atari 800. We got 5,334. Yeah, Jesus, good Lord. All right, we got Jaguar, 56 games. Atari Lynx, 84. Atari ST. I'm not going to go through all these. 248. Here, let me. Is this supposed to be? Let's change this to UI settings. Let's take it off fade and take it to instant. All right, there we go. 64 for Commodore, Channel F27, 41 for Daphne, 269 Dreamcast games. That's probably the bulk of the 500 gigabytes there. Everything is. This build is not user friendly. Why didn't they change the boot mode? I have no idea. Nintendo Game & Switch, all the little stuff they could have left off of here. But, you know, I'm sure most of you would have figured out, like, if they're going to upload something that's 400 or 500 gigabytes, it would have been something on here that's a little bit more heavy duty. Because as far as I can see, most of the stuff on here, it all emulates on the Pi 4. There is Killer Instinct on here as well as Killer Instinct 2. I'm not sure what ROM they were using because it didn't look like the arcade version. And the sound was definitely off, which has been an issue for some of the Raspberry Pi emulation. So we have 234 Nintendo 64, 96 games for Naomi, Neo Geo, 149, 688. Wow, you couldn't even add the full 700 for Nintendo Nintendo games on here. I mean, really, 688. Neo Geo Pocket. So you got all the other basic bottom stuff here for ports. We have Cave Story, PS2. You got these right here. You guys have already seen these already. And then for PSP, we have 11 games. So I'm going to play this one because I know this one's kind of okay. At least this one has an image that pops up for it. But PlayStation Portable has been one of the more difficult games to run on. I'm still confused as to what some of my buttons are. I haven't really been able to access RetroArch for some of these. Typically, that would be hotkey and X. All right, so that works there. And you can tell, I don't know if you guys can hear it or not, but this is definitely not optimized. You know, so from looking at this is pretty much just a ROM dump where they took a bunch of games, just dumped it on here and just said, you know, have at it. But, you know, again, you guys could have chosen to add this if you wanted to or not. And then would have just cut down on the download time and the extraction time period. All right, now let's see if I can exit out. All right, perfect. So that actually worked there. Let's try a different one. Let's try another PS2 game. Let's try King of Fighters. No, you know what? I want to try PS2. Let's see. You know, the one thing that is missing, though, I don't see. All right, so we have some Sega Saturn here. I don't see Virtual Cop or any of those games. So let's try Sega Rally Championship. See how this performs. All right, at least we got a PNG here while we load up. And again, this is the one that I did a video on several days ago where somebody is charging $30 for this. Apparently, Arcade Punks got a hold of this and then decided to upload it. So I haven't seen anything like this since the Raspberry Pi 4 days. Remember when the Raspberry Pi 4 first came out and people were booting up in the desktop and then trying to load Retropie on top of that? This is very reminiscent of that. Now, in terms of the raw power of the Raspberry Pi 5, we know it can emulate this. I'm just looking to see how well it runs, because even if you're not familiar with making images, you could dump a bunch of these ROMs on here, and natively the power of the Raspberry Pi 5 will do the rest. So you don't have to be a skilled individual to know how to make images or anything to get most of these games to run. All right, so my buttons are working here. I would show you guys Nintendo Wii emulation, but I got stuck in that because none of the buttons would work. All right, let's see. Hotkey and X. All right, that takes me back to my RetroArch menu if I want to adjust my controls. So let's go ahead and quit RetroArch. All right, and that takes me back there. So this image really doesn't give you a lot. I do know that it is not overclocked. I already checked the config text for that, but I'm sure most of you are interested to find out what some of these images can run, what they can do. Obviously, it's going to run all of your basic stuff, but for whatever reason, this one has some issues with it. It's really not up to par as far as what RetroPie can really do in terms of it logging in. You should not have desktop running in the background because that eats up additional system resources. Let's try this one here. And I have no idea what this thing is doing right now. All right, so let's see. You got one emulator there. All right, let's go ahead and launch. That did that by itself. I did absolutely nothing. And the mouse appearing here is absolutely normal. That's what would typically happen with this emulator. And let's see if we can go ahead and start. Go ahead and save. And so the other thing is I was sitting here idle for a few minutes. I can't remember exactly what I did, but the image locked up on me. I couldn't get out of it. I can show you guys a screenshot about that later. I'll just post it on Facebook later, but it locked me out, and it required a username and a password to get back in, and I couldn't do so. So I just basically had to unplug it. I couldn't power it off. I had to unplug it, plug it back in order to regain access. Let's see here. Just trying to get a game started to see what happens. Let's see if the game starts up and runs as it should. I'll turn the volume up. You can see we're in desktop mode because typically you would not see that screen down there at the bottom. Yeah, Edwin has a good, decent build out. It's called Doom Pie. If you guys haven't been able to check it out, you could download it from retropieuk.org. So that's also a pretty good one. I'm scared to hit a number of different buttons on here because I have no idea what it would do. All right, let's see what happens. Okay, I'm hitting a couple of buttons. I can't start, so I guess I have to wait for it to fully go through. All right, looks like there's a little bit of a slowdown here. All right, let's see if I can start the game. And it doesn't appear that any of my buttons are doing anything yet. So, all right, seems to be running pretty decently. All right, so if you guys have watched my previous video, I mentioned that in order to find out if some of these games on PlayStation 2 will run correctly, you kind of have to go through most of them to get a feel for it because some of them do have hiccups at different intervals. So you kind of got to play through most of them to find out what it can and cannot do. So, all right, let's go to Zoom game. All right, this one seems to be running pretty decently, so we're going to exit out. Let's go ahead and hit close game. Exit without saving. And it looks like it's taking us back to the emulator, which is typically what should happen. But normally you wouldn't have this window. It would be a full screen if this was full Retropie. You wouldn't have all this white stuff, just in the background looking ugly. So typically it would look more or less like this, but at the same time, you wouldn't have anything there at the bottom. I know you guys can't see it there because my name is in the way on the bottom left. But down here, you have the desktop mode with the taskbar. You have Ether emulator, and then of course you have a terminal, and then oh Jesus Christ, what the heck is this? All right, so let's get out of here, and then you get your time and date up here. Looks like you could even power down from up here if you wanted to. Oh wow, calendar. Okay, yeah, I thought this was a gaming front end. All right, so let's exit out of this. Let's go to system, and this should take us back to Retropie. All right. Other than that, that's pretty much the build. I mean, I'm not going to showcase all the low-tiered systems and games that you guys are familiar with. That'll be a complete waste of time. But for 512 gigabytes, and this person's charging $30 for 10 PlayStation 2 games, a couple of Wii games, and not even the more demanding like Die Hard, Virtual Cop, or anything on Sega Saturn. I don't know what's going on here. Even with Sega Model 3, I had a couple of issues with that as far as the control issues. It completely locked me into it. I couldn't do anything else. But there's nothing challenging. There's nothing demanding on this to justify why. I mean, this honestly could have been almost a 64 gigabyte base. You don't need 512 gigabytes for your basic Atari stuff and your WonderCons and ZX Spectrum and X6000. But I don't know. This is pretty hideous. I didn't like the login. Some of the other guys definitely didn't like it either. You should not have this white bar here at the top. I know you guys can't see it. You should not have your mouse cursor logged in to. Let's see. God forbid I accidentally hit something. Oh Jesus, I did it again. I guess we're back on desktop. Games. Retropie. Oh, then it logs you back in again, even though I didn't really log out. So I tried pulling up terminal and it just completely locks me out as well. In fact, let me try doing that. We'll go Alt F4. Let me see if I can even pull up terminal from here. Sound and video, office. Oh, yeah, we could type up documents and stuff in the middle of gaming. Swell. All right, let's see here. Retropie. Let's see, graphics, accessories. This is set up for some type of controller. I'm not exactly sure what, but obviously my Xbox Elite controller is already mapped to it. So this apparently is running in the background. You can do game config settings here if you wanted to adjust this. And it looks like I think I found the culprit. So it looks like it's using Dirty Gaming. Which one is normally the default? Is it SDL or is it UDEV? Isn't UDEV typically the default? That's probably why some of the controllers are off. Because I know I had to switch back and forth on the Orange Pi, and the control layout's a little differently, but I can't remember which one's the default. If it's SDL or I think it may be UDEV. All right, so let's just get out of this. Accessories, games. Yeah, let's go back to our Retropie image, and then it fully reboots itself. I don't know why it does this. And then you get this weird, it's not responding error. That shouldn't happen either. Let's pull up Sega Model 3. Let's do the Jurassic one. I'll try not to press on the left trigger this time because that automatically kicks me out. So this isn't set to however your normal buttons would normally be, like A, B, X, or Y. And this is running too fast. I mean, look how fast this is running. I'm not going to bother trying to change it. I'll just leave it as is. I know some of the games that are harder to emulate, people would turn on and run ahead. I didn't have any problems with this, so there's really no reason why this particular game needs to have run ahead on. Okay, so those buttons are working there. Okay, I don't think I'm moving. Looks like I'm just shooting in the same spot. I can't do anything else. I mean, I didn't set up the controls or anything, but when I plugged mine in, my stuff was already working. So, all right, so let's go ahead and exit out. I'm just going to hit the left trigger, and that takes me out. So, yeah, so that's a little too fast. This was, I'm sure the person tried to put in some work to put something out, but this is just not acceptable, especially for 512 gigabytes. I probably wouldn't be as hard on it if it was like 64, maybe 32 gigabytes, but to load up something for 512, you got games running way too fast. You don't even have any iconic demanding games on here. Some of the games you guys could see that the PlayStation 2 can run. You could check out my channel here. You can also check out Arcade Media, which is another affiliate channel where me and a few other guys will randomly post raw footage of gameplays and video snaps and things like that. But again, this is 512 gigabytes. It is loaded on Ubuntu, not using the Raspberry Pi or Raspberry OS. This is not typically how you would build a Retropie image or even release it. I mean, it's running on top of a background. So I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking, but to charge people for something like this, either maybe I need to up some prices or start charging and doing something, or because, yeah, this is pretty much where we're at right now. So let me know if you guys have any thoughts, you guys have any questions, because I just think that this could have been done a lot better. I don't know what the rush is, but this is not, in my opinion, look at the views. This isn't Retropie. This is not how it would typically run. If you're desperate and you want to have something to load up on here, then, I guess go for it, but not for $30 and definitely not for 512 gigabytes. And, people who are new will understand this, won't actually know what's going on. They'll just take it and, use it as is. But I know from my understanding, there's already frustrated people having issues with this, but I couldn't log out of Wii. Like, what's the purpose of having Wii emulation on here if you can't hotkey exit? I had to turn it off, turn it on, use some type of trickery to log out of that. But as far as some of the other games, like, this isn't even worth it. This is just a bunch of space for some of the smaller stuff. And you guys haven't even seen, if you guys want to see some of the other recent screenshots that I posted, you can check it out in either Supreme Retro Gaming or Retropie Official. I posted some random clips a few minutes ago after I first got on and booted this image up. I mean, it locked up at several different screens. I couldn't even access terminal. I even had a notepad or something pop up where I couldn't do anything. I was trying to go to terminal and see if I could SSH in or look at some configs. It wouldn't even let me do that. So This thing is extremely locked down. I don't know if the person's willing to give out the SSH. Normally it would be listed somewhere, but typically defaulted it would be Raspberry or Retropie or something. But I don't know. It's a lot of hassle, especially after doing all the downloads to get in here. Let's see what else we got here. Games. Let's go back to Retropie. I want to check this out one last time. Yeah, you see this white. This is all a white bar out here at the top that you guys can see. You see the mouse in the middle of the screen. That none of that stuff should even be here. So, at any rate, guys, let me know what your thoughts are below. Wanted to put this video out so you guys could kind of get an idea about what it is you're getting yourselves into, because this is not standard. This is not a, well, you guys can call it whatever it is. Have a good night. I'll catch you later. Bye.